Imagine eating ice cream in a 40-degree desert 2000 years before electricity was even a concept. It sounds like a magic trick, but ancient Persian engineers were actually masters of thermodynamics long before we even had a name for it. So the first big question is, where did they even get the ice from in the first place? The answer is that they used the unique desert climate to their advantage. During the winter, when temperatures fall at night, they would flood shallow pools with fresh water. Because the desert sky is so clear and dry, heat from the water would radiate directly out into space through a process called radiation, causing the water to freeze even if the temperature was slightly above freezing. By mornings, they had sheets of ice ready to be harvested and rushed into storage before the sun could get too high. But once you have the ice, how do you keep it from melting in a giant pile? The answer is a structure called a Yakhchal, which literally translates to an ice pit. These were giant dome-shaped buildings with massive underground storage pit that could hold up to 5,000 tons of ice. You might ask, why does the Yakhchal look like a giant cone? The answer is that the dome shape was a clever way to manage heat. As the air inside warmed up, it would naturally rise to the top and escape through a vent at the peak, while the coolest air stayed trapped at the bottom with the ice. This leads us to our next question. What could they possibly build these out of what they wouldn't just bake in the sun? These engineers used a super-mortar called Saruj, which was a mix of sand, clay, lime and ash combined with some surprising ingredients like goat hair and egg whites. This created walls that were up to 6 feet thick and were almost completely heat-proof and waterproof. Some historians even say the domes were covered in thick layers of straw thatch to act like a giant fuzzy blanket, keeping the desert heat away from the treasure inside. Was the insulation enough on its own? Not quite. So how did they actually keep the interior cold during a heat wave? They used wind catchers, which were tall towers that caught the desert breeze and funneled it down into underground channels. Often these tunnels were connected to canthas, which were underground canals of cold mountain water. As the hot air passed over the water, it went through a process called evaporative cooling. This is the same reason you feel cold when you step out of a shower. As water evaporates, it requires energy, which it takes away from its surroundings as heat. This dropped the temperature inside the Yakhchal to fridge levels, keeping the ice frozen even when it was 40 degrees Celsius outside. Did any other civilization have their own version of a fridge? Ancient Egyptians used a much smaller version of this same cooling trick called the pot-import system. They would put a small clay pot inside a larger one, fill the gap between them with wet sand, and cover it with a damp cloth. As the water in the sand evaporated through the porous clay, it sucked the heat out of the inner pot, keeping food fresh and water cool in the middle of the desert. So why does all of this ancient tech matter today? It shows that humans have always been incredibly good at solving problems using the environment around them. These ancient refrigerators were sustainable, energy efficient, and worked for thousands of years without ever needing a power grid or a repairman. Next time you grab an ice cube, just think about the desert engineers who were doing the exact same thing with nothing but mud, wind, and egg whites.